Is kindness always a virtue, or can it serve as a vice under the right circumstances? A question that may unsettle our ingrained belief in the universal good of kindness. Today, we delve into the darker side of this virtue as we consider the paradoxical notion that kindness, in certain contexts, can indeed have detrimental effects on one's life. A thought-provoking perspective, wouldn't you say? So, buckle up your mental seatbelt and join us as we explore 8 ways how kindness might just ruin your life. 1. Kindness can make you an enabler. A rather bold statement, wouldn't you say? However, it paints a vivid picture of an often overlooked side of kindness. Now, don't get me wrong, kindness is a virtue, but when it's overdone, it can lead to some sticky situations. Imagine a scenario where you're constantly picking up the slack for a friend or a loved one. You're doing it out of kindness, right? But here's the catch. By doing so, you could be enabling their lack of responsibility or even fostering harmful behaviors. You see, when we continually cover for someone else's inadequacies, we rob them of the chance to grow, to learn, to become better. It's like a child learning to walk. If we continually carry them, they will never learn to stand on their own 2 feet. The same principle applies to adults. We all need to experience the consequences of our actions, good or bad, to truly understand and navigate the world around us. Kindness, when used as a crutch rather than a helping hand, can stifle personal growth and encourage dependency. It's crucial to remember that kindness doesn't mean absolving others of their responsibilities. It's about lending a hand when needed, not carrying someone else's load indefinitely. So, while being kind is commendable, it's important to know where to draw the line. Remember, your kindness should empower, not enable. 2. Kindness can turn you into a doormat. The constant acts of kindness you show can sometimes be misconstrued. People may perceive your goodwill as a sign of weakness, an open invitation to take you for granted. Picture this. You're always the one to compromise, to step back, to let others have their way, all in the name of being kind. But what happens when this becomes a pattern? You become a doormat, trampled and overlooked, your self-respect and dignity slowly eroding away. It's important to remember that kindness is a virtue, not a liability. It's about aiding others, not enabling their manipulative tendencies. Kindness should never equate to self-sacrifice. It should never mean losing your voice, your rights, or your identity. It must be a conscious choice, not a forced obligation. So be wary of the balance. Don't let your kindness be mistaken for weakness. Remember, your kindness should never come at the expense of your self-worth. 3. Kindness can lead to burnout. A seemingly paradoxical statement, wouldn't you say? Yet it holds an undeniable truth. Imagine a well of clear, refreshing water. Now, consider this well as a symbol of your emotional energy. Each act of kindness, each selfless deed, is akin to drawing water from this well. Over time, with constant giving and no replenishment, the well runs dry. This is burnout. Burnout isn't solely about feeling tired. It's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion, often accompanied by a sense of cynicism and detachment. It's the overwhelming sensation of being drained, of having nothing more to give. And this isn't a state anyone should take lightly. It can greatly affect your mental health, your relationships, and your overall well-being. Being kind to others is commendable, but it's equally important to show kindness to oneself. It's crucial to strike a balance between being kind to others and taking care of yourself. 4. Kindness can make you a people pleaser. This is a peculiar twist of fate, isn't it? You start out with the best intentions, earnestly wanting to be kind and helpful, but somewhere along the line, this noble virtue can morph into a relentless need for approval. You might find yourself saying yes to every request, even when it's against your better judgment or personal interests. You start to bend over backwards, twisting yourself into shapes to suit the whims of others. In doing so, you might lose touch with your own desires, your own identity. Your actions are no longer driven by your own autonomy or values, but by the fear of disappointing others. You become a puppet, dancing to the strings of approval and validation. This is not true kindness. This is self-abandonment. Remember, true kindness should come from the heart, not from a place of fear or obligation. It's about balancing your own needs with those of others, not losing yourself in the process. 5. kindness can make you a martyr. Now that's a statement that might raise a few eyebrows. Yet when you dive deeper into the implications of excessive kindness, it becomes clear that this is more than just a hyperbole. Imagine a person who is always putting others first, always ready to lend a helping hand, always putting their own needs and desires on the back burner. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? This is the martyr, the person who sacrifices their own happiness on the altar of kindness. An act of kindness becomes a martyrdom when you start neglecting your own needs and wants. You might think you're just being generous, but what you're really doing is denying yourself the opportunity to pursue your own happiness. This self-sacrifice, although noble, can lead to resentment, exhaustion, and a sense of unfulfillment. Remember, true kindness should not require you to sacrifice your happiness. 6. Kindness can make you susceptible to manipulation. Picture this. You're a good-natured soul, always eager to lend a helping hand. But in this world of ours, not everyone plays by the same ethical rules. Some individuals, the manipulators, have honed the art of exploiting others' goodwill for their own benefits. They see your kindness not as strength, but as a vulnerability to be exploited. You might find yourself constantly bending to the whims of others, giving in to demands that seem never-ending. The manipulator could be a friend, a family member, or even a co-worker. Their tactics are subtle and nuanced, making it hard to realize you're being used until it's too late. The key to navigating this treacherous path is to recognize the signs of manipulation early on. Keep your boundaries firm and your kindness intact without becoming a pushover. Remember, it's not unkind to say no when necessary. Be aware of those who might take your kindness for weakness. 7. Kindness can make you avoid conflict. Now, this is where things get a bit tricky. You see, an abundance of kindness can often lead to a fear of conflict. You may find yourself so eager to keep the peace that you start to avoid any form of disagreement or confrontation. This, however, can have serious repercussions. You might start to overlook or ignore key issues simply because addressing them would mean stirring the pot. You may start to keep your problems to yourself, bottling up emotions and letting unresolved matters fester. This can lead to stress, anxiety, and a host of other problems. The thing to remember here is that conflict isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it's necessary for growth, for resolution, for progress. It can lead to understanding, to compromise, to solutions. So don't let your kindness make you shy away from conflict. Sometimes kindness means addressing the hard truths. 8. Kindness can lead to resentment. As we've delved into the various ways kindness can paradoxically spoil your life, we now arrive at a particularly bitter consequence: resentment. Imagine this. You're always the one extending a helping hand, always ready to put others before yourself. But what happens when this generosity is not reciprocated? When your acts of kindness are taken for granted, unappreciated, or worse, exploited? This constant giving, when met with nothing in return, can breed a deep-seated resentment. It's like sowing seeds into a barren field, expecting a bountiful harvest but reaping only disappointment. This bitterness isn't about the lack of reciprocation per se, but rather the expectation of it. It's the realization that the balance in your relationships is tilted, that you're giving more than you're receiving. Ultimately, this resentment can tarnish your perspective of kindness, turning it into a source of pain rather than joy. Remember, kindness should be a two-way street. Let's recap the 8 ways how kindness can ruin your life. We've journeyed through the pitfalls of being the enabler, where your generosity becomes a crutch for others' irresponsibility. We've explored the trials of the doormat, constantly walked over due to an inability to say no. We've felt the exhaustion of the burnout, who gives until there's nothing left. We've empathized with the people pleaser, always striving for approval at the cost of personal authenticity. We've shared the burdens of the martyr, who sacrifices self for others. We've seen the plight of the manipulated, used by those who recognize their kindness as a vulnerability. We've understood the fear of the avoider, who uses kindness to evade conflict. And we've felt the bitterness of the resentful, always giving more than they receive. These tales illustrate the importance of balance when it comes to kindness. Remember, real kindness is about respect. for others, but most importantly for yourself.